Hey everyone, Arms here. Welcome to part 2 of my Terraria Whips Only Master Mode Challenge. To get a better understanding of the run and its rules, I highly recommend you go back and watch the first part if you have not, as it would really help both of us. Also, before I get into the video, it would mean the world if you would please go ahead and leave a like, as it really helps me know that you want to see more of these. And if you haven't, please subscribe as well, as 90% of you watching these videos don't subscribe. Also, let me know at any point in the comments if you would have done something different in this run, as I would love to know. You guys actually teach me a lot in the comments of these videos, and it's just really amazing to see. Now, let's get into the video. So we finally returned to our journey after defeating the Wall of Flesh. Sadly, I did not get the Firecracker on my first try, and it ends up taking a few more tries at the Wall of Flesh to get the Firecracker and the Summoner emblem I was looking for. Now that I've finally gotten my first hard mode whip, I can start the grind of early hard mode. There are a few accessories I want to get. I start off by farming for Souls of Flight in order to make a new set of wings, and at the same time I'm looking for either a Harpy wing or a Frozen wing, whichever I can get my hands on first. In between the farming for accessories, I work on collecting some hard mode ore for some armor. While the hard mode ore armors don't really help with my whips that much, it can give me some extra defense which I desperately need given the lackluster defense of the obsidian armor. Now, because I am only using whips, any items that give me extra melee speed actually help me quite a bit, as these effects also apply to whips. That being said, there are two items in particular I can get right now that provide these buffs. The first one being the Moon Charm, for obvious reasons, and the other being the Power Glove, and even its variants later on. Power Glove, the Berserker Glove, and the Mechanical Glove. All of these glove variants give bonus melee speed and can stack with one another, which can give a massive whip speed boost when combined. That being said, I then spent a ton of time farming various enemies, mostly for the various mimics for the multitude of items that they drop. After the mimic farming, I then work on making a world bridge. Look, there's a reason why I take the time to make these in all of my worlds, and that's because if you don't want to cheese bosses, you oftentimes need as large of an arena as possible for many of the endgame bosses and events, so while it may take a while, I definitely always feel like they are worth it in the end. While working on the world bridge, I finally got rain in my world, which meant a blizzard in the snow biome, and therefore ice golems. Ice golems drop ice cores, which can be used to make the next whip we can get, the Cool Whip. The Cool Whip actually has a cool, pun definitely intended, effect where it summons a snowflake to attack targeted enemies, giving me a boost in my offense that no other whip can offer in the game. My next goal was to farm the Olin's army before defeating my first mech boss. While it was still super easy, I'm going to need some defender medals soon, so getting them while they're very easy is a must. Then it was finally time to take on my first mech boss, and my choice first was going to be the twins. You see, right now my DPS is not the best, however with the obsidian armor, my reach with the whips is actually pretty good, meaning that they would be the perfect candidate for the first mech boss I can take down. On my first try at the twins, Retinizer ends up despawning at the end because I run too far away from him while trying to create distance for a heal, so I have to take a second try at them. After finally defeating my first mech boss, I immediately made the Durandal the next whip in my journey. This whip is going to be very important for me as it is a big damage upgrade, but it can also increase the damage of my other whips greatly. You see, something I avoided in pre-hard mode is called whip effect stacking, in which you can utilize multiple effects of different whips at a time. For example, if you take the Leather Whip and the Snapthorn, you can actually stack their summon tag damage on a single enemy as long as you consistently switch between both. However, for me, this doesn't really do much. But if you take whips like the Snapthorn and Durandal, they both have effects that boost your whip speed after hitting an enemy, meaning that you can give this temporary whip speed boost to another whip as long as you occasionally switch between your two whips. While this is not much of a help when the Durandal is my main whip, this becomes amazing help when I get more powerful but slower whips later on. So now that I've beaten a mechanical boss, I actually have access to something interesting, and that is armor from the Old One's army. These armors are very underused, as they are based around sentries. Sadly, many of the bosses in Terraria are so fast that sentries can't really help you much, except in rare cases like the Golem. That being said, there is some use I can get out of two of the armors in particular. The Monk armor, which is unlocked after beating one mech boss, and the Shinobi Infiltrator armor, which is unlocked after beating the Golem. These armors actually give a better summon damage boost than the Obsidian armor, and give a melee speed buff, which we know applies to the whips. What they lack in whip length increase, they make up for with their much better defense than the Obsidian armor, meaning that I can have a good defense armor in hard mode while still getting some good benefits to my whips. Now that I have a good weapon, I want to try taking on the Duke. I will say, I definitely feel like this can be done before the mechs with a cool whip. I just wanted the Durandal first to make it easier. So, enjoy. So, with my new Monk armor and my new Fishron wings, it was time to take on my second mech boss, the Destroyer. For the Destroyer, I had a strategy of switching between the Monk armor and the Obsidian armor so that I could switch between pure offense and a more defense-based setup at a moment's notice. I could have also used the Moonstone instead of the Moon Charm at this point, however I did not get a solar eclipse yet and I didn't want to have to wait for one because we all know that could take forever. With that being said, enjoy the fight. After the Destroyer comes the final mech boss I need to beat, Skeletron Prime. Now I actually forgot to record most of the first fight, so I just beat him twice in one night because at this point he was actually pretty easy to beat. Later on, while searching for both Life Fruit and a Plantera bulb, I actually finally got the solar eclipse I was waiting for, so it was time to deal with that first. After finding a Plantera bulb, it was time to make an arena like always. However, for this one, I had something different in mind. I actually create a shaft going up to the surface in the arena in order to test a method of fighting Plantera that I have seen many times from a YouTuber known as Phantasm. He makes amazing Terraria videos, and if you have not seen his videos yet, you should definitely go check him out. And if you watch these, there's a good chance you watch him anyway since he's way bigger than me, so still wanted to give him a shout out either way. Now, let's get into the fight. One thing I want to say real quick is that I'm being forced to change the song here. I originally had Plantera's theme for the Plantera boss fight. However, Polaris Hub AB is claiming to own the Plantera theme when we know that's impossible. This company actually has a history of falsely claiming music on YouTube and stealing money from people. I happen to benefit from the fact that I don't make money from these videos yet, so they won't get a dime of this. I want you all to know that I'm working on a video about it shortly, but this company scams people out of their money, and I want it to be dealt with in some way. Thank you and enjoy the fight. Now that Plantera is defeated, it's time to head to the dungeon to get a bunch of goodies like the Tabby and the Black Belt for the Master Ninja gear, but most importantly I can get my next whip, the Morning Star, which is actually tied for the highest base damage of whips in the game and is the second longest whip as well. The only downside is it's very slow, and I mean very slow. However, I can fix this with the whip effect stacking I was talking about earlier. Now that I had such a powerful whip, I spent some time farming bosses for money and just to test how much more powerful I've become. Heading right into the golem fight, it was quite nice to be able to use the monk armor and not feel insanely squishy like the obsidian armor made me feel. But it's still sad that there aren't more armors that give whip-based bonuses. Maybe we can see something like that in the future with a potential update in Terraria 2 or maybe a mod. We'll see. That being said, enjoy the fight. Now that I beat the golem, I can finally get the Shinobi Infiltrator armor. This armor is a direct upgrade to the monk armor, as all the stat boosts it gives are similar, but better. Now that the golem was defeated, my next goal was to build out an arena in my world for fighting the Pumpkin Moon. I basically make a big dugout area with a thin layer of lava and lizard traps going off everywhere to help take care of the weaker minions while you can focus on the bosses in later rounds. This event is really important for this run, as the Pumpkin drops the Dark Harvest, which is the third highest damage and length whip in the game, and it also gives whip speed bonuses just like the Durandal and the Snapthorn, making it very powerful for this character. So after many nights of farming the Pumpkin Moon, I finally get the Dark Harvest and then go to take on Duke Fishron again in order to test the DPS I can get with the different whip combinations. Next up is the Empress of Light, as she drops the next and final whip that we want, as well as the soaring insignia and her wings. On my first attempt of the Empress, I die as I was getting used to being able to dodge the attacks while also being in whip range. However, on the second attempt, I clean up my play. So, enjoy. Sadly, on the first attempt, I don't get the kaleidoscope, and it takes a few more attempts to get what I want. Now that I have gathered everything, it was finally time to take on the last events of the game. The Lunatic Cultist, the Lunar Pillars, and the Moon Lord. Now, I must say, at this point in the game, I was really starting to lose the fun of this challenge. You see, all the bosses are pretty fun. Since you have no defense really, you really need to have your dodges on point and know the patterns of the bosses. However, when it comes to mobbing based events, particularly the Lunar Pillars, They are just not fun whatsoever and just feel so grueling to get to. There is actually a few week gap between me doing most of the playthrough and beating the Lunar Pillars and the Moonlord, as it was so annoying to just get two-shot by hordes of enemies when you're using the Valhalla Knight Armor, the highest defense armor in the Summoner class. You see, I didn't want to have to fight the Lunar Pillars every time I wanted to summon the Moonlord, so I fought them a few times, losing to the Moonlord each time to make sure I have enough summoning sigils that I would never need to fight them again with this character. Now that I have enough Moonlord summons, it was time to take him down. However, it's not as simple as you might think. I'm not the best at the Moonlord fight, to be honest. He is a boss that I definitely need to practice more, so I wanted to go in with a strategy. If I just used the Obsidian Armor, I would need to basically go hitless since this is Master Mode. However, I had a different idea in mind. I ended up using both the Obsidian Armor and the Valhalla Knight Armor I was referencing earlier. Like I said, this armor has the highest defense of all the Summoner armors. However, what makes it even better is the life regen you get from the Valhalla armor. So my plan going into the Moonlord fight was to utilize things like the Star Veil for extra immunity frames and things like the Charm of Myths, Heart Lanterns, Campfires, and even bubbles filled with honey to maximize the amount of life regen I can get at any moment. And during the fight, I could switch between the Obsidian Armor and the Valhalla Knight Armor depending on the situation. When there was a moment where I was full on health, I could use the Obsidian Armor to have as much reach and damage as I could possibly need, and when I was getting low and wanted to run away to heal, I could switch to the Valhalla Knight Armor to maximize my healing entirely. One thing I want to say is I did end up using auto pause for this fight to switch between the armors. You probably could do this efficiently without auto pause. It was just getting frustrating for me. If you want to try this challenge and beat it without auto pause, I highly encourage you to do it, as it is a grueling challenge, but as I'll talk about later, very satisfying. So, with that being said, enjoy the fight. So I was finally able to take down the Moon Lord, the final boss in this challenge, and I want to say this is probably one of the most frustrating challenge runs I've ever done. It was very, very fun at moments and very, very, very unfun at other moments. When it comes to mobbing, certain scenarios are fine, like the solar eclipse or even the pumpkin moon, but the lunar pillars just ruined this run for me entirely in terms of fun. It is impossible to survive the attacks from the enemies in the lunar pillars in master mode, even with the highest defense you could possibly have as a summoner. In a normal summoner playthrough, you can also have minions and sentries that will deal with enemies for you, but with the low defense of the summoner class in general, and in this run not having minions to help with this challenge, made the lunar pillars absolutely brutal and straight up no fun whatsoever. There's certainly a lot of problems with the balance in master mode, and that is actually something I want to talk about in a future video, but for now I want to thank all of you for watching. I was so happy to finally complete this challenge, even though it was very unfun at certain points. It was one of the most satisfying playthroughs to complete because of how hard it was. Please don't forget to leave a like, and if you haven't already, subscribe for more. These videos take a lot of work, and I have weekly videos coming that you won't want to miss. So thank you so much, and have a great day.